Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my top 10 waiver wire ads for week number 3 of the 2021 fantasy football season. But before we get on into the in-depth breakdown of my top 10 waiver wire ads for the week, I'd like to ask if you guys are new to the channel to please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Me and the guys over at the Awesemo Fantasy Football YouTube channel put out content every single day to try to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. Also, please make sure to hit that like button down below. But before we get on into things, I'd also like to ask you guys, who is your number one waiver wire ad for week number 3 of the 2021 fantasy football season? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to have discussion with you guys down there. So without further ado, let's get into the video. My number 10 waiver wire ad of the week is Trenton Cannon, running back of the San Francisco 49ers. Now, Cannon is in probably the most ideal situation. Now, last week, basically everyone and their mother put in a waiver wire bid to get Elijah Mitchell. In this game last week, Elijah Mitchell gets banged up on Sunday. You want to know who else gets banged up? JaMycal Hasty, who is now out week to week with a high ankle sprain. On his first play of his NFL career, the first time this man gets the ball, Trey Sermon gets hurt, having a head/neck injury as well as fumbling the ball. That is terrible. So basically right now, the 49ers are definitely down JaMycal Hasty. He's not playing in this game this week. Trey Sermon may be good to go, may not be. Elijah Mitchell, I would lean probably closer to playing than Trey Sermon, but this is still a very, very bad situation when you're looking at it. They will also likely bring in another running back, if not 2 other running backs, to this team. They also have Kerryon Johnson on the team. So this is going to be a very, very confusing situation in San Francisco, unless Eli Mitchell is able to play. And then in that case, you could probably start up Elijah Mitchell. Now, again, this is much more of a speculative ad over a guy that you want to be throwing into your lineup in week number 3. Next up, we have wide receiver of the Cleveland Browns, Rashard Higgins. Rashard Higgins is in not the greatest of spots originally on the season, but now he has elevated himself to potentially be the number 1 wide receiver in Cleveland. Now, I only say that because Jarvis Landry obviously is hurt. He's week to week right now with a sprained MCL, and Odell Beckham Jr. just does not appear to be healthy. In week 1, everyone thinks he's going to go. He gets the sit the hell down, basically, is what Kevin Stefanski tells him. And then in week number 2, you're thinking, oh, maybe this is his time. And then like a day before the game on Saturday, they're like, hey, Odell is not going to play. Now, my expectation is that Odell is going to play in the game this week for the Cleveland Browns, but it is far from a guarantee. Rashard Higgins last week goes 2 for 2 for 27 receiving yards. So again, this guy isn't some elite wide receiver option, but when you are elevated to that wide receiver number 2 spot on any team, you're going to at least have some fantasy relevance. So he is definitely worth a pickup on the week. At number 8, we have KJ Osborn of the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I thought that KJ Osborn, wide receiver of the Minnesota Vikings, was the biggest trap pickup of last week, meaning that you were going to pick him up, you're going to think, holy shit, maybe this guy is going to really put up numbers week in and week out. Maybe the Minnesota Vikings are a really good team. Maybe this is the perfect role for him as the wide receiver 3 behind Justin Jefferson, as well as behind Adam Thielen. But in my head, I'm like, probably not, right? He probably has this one big game, this Osborn fella, everyone picks him up, and then a week or 2 from now, he's off everyone's team, and no one's talking about him. But now, we're in week number 3, and guess who's talking about him? Me. So, again, I thought this was going to be a swing and a miss pickup last week. Didn't even talk about him, but it appears that that may be a slam dunk. In week number 1 at the Cincinnati Bengals, he went 7 of 9 for 76 receiving yards. Week number 2, going up against the Arizona Cardinals, he has 5 receptions on 6 targets for 91 receiving yards and a touchdown. He is the clear number 3 wide receiver there, and if he keeps playing this well, which both week 1 and week 2 showed, and if the Minnesota Vikings offense looks as good as it has looked in week 1 and week number 2, then I'm certainly going to be very excited about getting KJ Osborn right now. This is probably the last time you're going to be able to get him, because next week, if he ends up having a huge game again, that he may end up being the number 1 waiver wire ad of the week. But before we get on into our next waiver wire ad, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at Yahoo. Start the NFL season off right with Yahoo Daily Fantasy. To celebrate, we have a brand new exclusive deal thanks to our partnership with Yahoo, where you guys can get 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You heard that right, 2 free months to qualify. All you need to do is go ahead and go to Yahoo, sign up with a new account via the link in the description below, deposit, and play. That is it. Yahoo will send us your name after you play in your first paid contest on the site, and we will reach out to you via email with your coupon. If you need immediate access because you want to play today, please email support@awesemo.com and we will get it set up right for you right now. Just to emphasize, this offer is for new Yahoo users only. If you're already a Yahoo user, then you will not be eligible for this promo. Once again, once you are signed up, make sure to enter tonight's single game $200,000 Monday Night Football single game baller contest with your 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You will have access to our tools and projections specifically designed for Yahoo DFS to help you guys take down those big Yahoo contests and other contests to win big with Yahoo DFS. Take advantage and join Yahoo today. Back into it. Next up, we have wide receiver of the Arizona Cardinals, Rondale Moore. Now, Rondale Moore, he may be a little guy, but this dude is a goddamn monster. In week number 1 up against the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee, he goes 4 of 5 for 68 receiving yards, one off of being very, very nice with 69 receiving yards. But he only had 68. In week number 2 up against the Minnesota Vikings, in my head I'm thinking, you know what? The Arizona Cardinals, they just looked so good last week. So strong up against the Titans. I think they're going to be a good team. I expect them to be good. But maybe Rondale Moore doesn't play as well, right? DeAndre Hopkins is the clear number 1 there. Then in week number 2, up against the Vikings, he gets 8 targets, 7 receptions for 114 receiving yards and a touchdown. The Arizona Cardinals offense literally looks unstoppable. How do you stop these guys? Even Christian Kirk looks good. So they have Kyler Murray, they have Chase Edmonds, they have James Conner, they have DeAndre Hopkins, they have Rondale Moore, they have Christian Kirk, they have AJ Green, and Rondale Moore somehow elevated himself past all those other guys that have been in the league for a while as a rookie to be one of the top receiving options on a high-octane offense in Arizona. I was not high really at all on KJ Osborn last week. I didn't even talk about him. I talked about Rondale Moore in last week's wide receiver ad video, but I wasn't completely 100% sold in on the fact that this was going to be a guy that is week in, week out, potentially in your lineup, especially in deeper leagues. But now it appears that Rondale Moore is entering must-start category at this point with how well he's been playing in his career thus far. Next up, we have J.D. McKissic, running back of the Washington football team. Now, this is a situation that is about as dicey as it gets. Going into week 1, my expectation, the expectation of most fantasy analysts, is that J.D. McKissic is going to at least be somewhat involved in this offense, because last season, this man had over 100 targets for the Washington football team and was very involved in third down scenarios. And then we enter week 1. It comes and it goes. The man has 1 rush and 1 total target in the game. Where was the third down work? It was non-existent. So then going into week 2 up against the New York Football Giants on Thursday night, I'm banging the drum for Antonio Gibson. I'm thinking, you know what? This is a cupcake situation now. Antonio Gibson actually could become the Christian McCaffrey that people were comparing him to, that he could be a guy that sees so many targets game in and game out. And then what happens in week number 2? J.D. McKissic has 4 rushes for 10 yards and a touchdown. He gets the goal line work over Antonio Gibson. He also has 6 targets for 5 receptions and 85 yards. So right now, I'm 100% sure that this is a guy that you need to add off the waiver wire. A lot of people, after week 1, they just cut him. They saw what happened. They were like, you know what? It's Antonio Gibson season. It is what it is. I drafted this guy in like the 13th, 14th, 15th round of my draft. Let me cut him loose. Or maybe they picked him up off the waiver wire before week 1. Like, you know what? This is a speculative ad. Maybe he'll be good in week number 1. And then they released him. So he's available in tons of leagues. And if he continues with this workload, being the guy getting all these receptions, despite Antonio Gibson being very good in the receiving game, then J.D. McKissic is a steal off of the waiver wire net right now. Next up, we have Alexander Mattison, running back of the Minnesota Vikings. So Dalvin Cook ends up getting banged up, and Coach Zimmer calls it a little ankle sprain. Just a teensy bit ankle sprain, I guess is what they're calling this. So he was coming on and off the field at the end of the game, and I doubt Cook misses some serious time. I don't even think Dalvin Cook will miss this week. But based upon what we saw Dalvin Cook get hurt. Everyone likes to point the finger that Dalvin Cook is made of glass, that Dalvin Cook is this injury-prone running back. Guess what? We just saw it happen. Now, again, I'm not telling you that he's injury-prone, right? Because I'm not a fucking doctor, okay? But what I am going to tell you is that if you have Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison is available, he is a must-add at this point. And even if you don't have Dalvin Cook, there is still a shot that Alexander Mattison sees an increased workload this week in week number 3 because Dalvin Cook is a little bit banged up. Next up, we have Tony Pollard, running back of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, to me, this is a very similar situation to what we have with Alexander Mattison, except for Tony Pollard is going to be seeing definitely more work week in and week out with Ezekiel Elliott in the game, whereas Alexander Mattison really needs Dalvin Cook to be hurt to have some value. So Tony Pollard, to me, looked good, but Ezekiel Elliott is definitely the clear number 1 running back on the team. A lot of people, they say, oh, Nick, Tony Pollard is just super explosive. He's going to somehow take over for Ezekiel Elliott. Sure, he looks explosive. He is a tinier build than Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott is still a very explosive running back. Ezekiel Elliott doesn't appear to have lost a touch or something. Sure, in week number 1, he didn't look that good. But what do you expect up against the Bucks? In week number 2, last week up against the Chargers, Ezekiel Elliott played fine. Sure, he didn't have the 30-plus points that we potentially thought he could see in a high-scoring game, but he was still rock solid. But with that said, Tony Pollard is still going to be seeing usage in week number 2 at the LA Chargers. He had 13 rushes for 109 rushing yards and 1 touchdown, as well as going 3 for 3 like a free throw in the receiving game with 31 receiving yards. So again, don't go ahead and panic if you have Ezekiel Elliott. But if Tony Pollard is available and they continue to give him maybe 8 touches a game, like 8 rushes a game, and then they give him 2 to 3 dump-offs a game, then maybe, just maybe, in these plus matchups, these great matchups, then Tony Pollard will be worthy of entering your lineup. But before we get on into the next waiver wire ad, I'd like to let you guys know that if you are looking for season-long fantasy football coverage, then you have came to the right place. Our NFL Express Weekly Pass is available right now for only $3.95, and it is more expansive than ever and includes our access to our trade value chart, strength of schedule tool, and the fantasy streaming helper. With that, you will also get the NFL DFS player and ownership rankings, access to our expert Slack chat, and everything we have to offer for NFL DFS Showdown and single game contest. New this year to the package, as well is the projected ownership and optimal lineup opportunity for tiered contests on DraftKings. Head on over to Awesemo Plus join page and pick up your pass today for only $3.95. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Back into it. The next ad is Henry Ruggs, wide receiver of the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders offense somehow looks amazing. Derek Carr looks like he has just fixed everything. His career is amazing. In week number 1, everyone's making fun of Derek Carr, right? Because at the beginning of the game, this guy looks like complete and utter dog shit. And then, like, something just changed in him, and he looked really good. And Henry Ruggs, I may have been wrong. I have never spoken too kindly about Henry Ruggs. It seems like he's one of those guys, kind of like how everyone talks up that this guy's Tyreek Hill 2.0. But guess what? No one's Tyreek Hill 2.0 because But Nick, Tyreek Hill played bad against the Ravens last night. I know, but most receivers that are uber fast, like Ruggs, like Hill, like Hollywood Brown, they aren't consistent. They have that big boom game. They have that 25-plus point performance where they catch those 2 touchdowns. They get the big reception. But after that, they do nothing. But Henry Ruggs looks pretty consistent. In week number 2 at the Steelers, he had 5 receptions for 113 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. So it seems like we may actually see this consistency out of Henry Ruggs. And if that is the case and this Raider offense keeps on chugging, then I believe Henry Ruggs is going to be an excellent wide receiver from here on out. Next up, we have the number 2 waiver wire ad, Sony Michel, running back of the LA Rams. Now, all of Sony Michel's value hitches on the fact that Darrell Henderson doesn't play. Now, a lot of people in the offseason, they trade for Sony Michel, right, from the Patriots, and people start getting nervous. They start panicking. They're thinking, holy shit, Darrell Henderson's going to get destroyed now. He's not going to get as much volume. And then week 1 and 2, when Darrell Henderson's in the game, when he's healthy, there's no concern of Sony Michel really stealing any value. But it appears right now that Henderson has suffered a rib injury in the 4th quarter of the game, and he did not end up returning. Now, does a rib injury always mean that, hey, this guy's going to be out for like 4 or 5 weeks? No. It could come out that, hey, he may be good to go this week. Maybe we want to sit him down, but next week, he'll be perfectly fine. That could be an assumption of mine, and that could be likely what happens here. But again, I'm not a doctor. Nothing has came out just yet about Sony Michel being 100% good or 100% out. We will probably have to wait maybe a day or two to 100% see that, and the waivers will probably have processed by then. So I do think Sony Michel is definitely worthy of an ad, because if Darrell Henderson is not there, Sony Michel is elevated to a very, very nice position in LA. He had 10 rushes for 46 yards in relief of Darrell Henderson up against the Indianapolis Colts. Again, those are not the most special numbers, but it was pretty solid, and Sony Michel is a perfectly fine NFL running back, a serviceable NFL running back, and if Henderson is gone, he should be in for a big week or potential couple of weeks. Final player here, the number 1 waiver wire ad this week is James White, running back of the New England Patriots. James White continues to see a heavy receiving workload in New England. Now, James White's never going to be the guy that sees like 20 plus rushes in a game or something crazy like that, even 10 plus rushes in a game. But last week, he had 5 rushes for over 20 yards and a touchdown up against the Jumbo Jets, matched with 6 receptions for 45 receiving yards. And a lot of his value comes from the receiving game. While Damian Harris saw a nice uptick in targets in week 1 and 2, that is not at all going to be taking away from the value that James White presents week in and week out. It's hard to find some good running backs off the waiver wire, so you might as well go ahead and add James White, who in PPR and half PPR is a spot start you guys can put in and week out. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure that you guys do hit that subscribe button down below. I would appreciate it a ton. I love you guys. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at NotoriousFNTSY. As always, have a great rest of your guys' day. Bye.